50 years. And I know that during the time of apartheid regime in South Africa, tough times, challenging. You also knew a lot of people who were very close to Nelson Mandela. You have worked with somebody that I actually have learned and have had the opportunity to, obviously, in his organization, I've had the opportunity to work so Kersner. And you must have met many other people. You have been in many boards as a board of directors and in some cases as chairmen. What is the best advice you have received of all the years and an advice that you still remember?
I think two things quickly. My English teacher at school, for whatever reason, wanted to encourage us to love English. And he thought that the best way to make us love English was to use it. So he made us write it, read it, and speak it. And in order to prove that you had done those things, you had to keep the thing which he called a reader's notebook, but was actually a journal. And I think one of my most precious learnings was from him, that when you write in your journal, right, you're writing to the real Colin. Your ego, which always wants to interrupt, has got no pencil, so it can't join you. So your journal is an exercise of exploring with yourself your own growth, your own mistakes, your own learnings. So that was one of the most interesting. And another one was Mandela. There was a wonderful priest here who was an activist, anti-apartheid activist by the name of Trevor Huddleston, who became Archbishop Trevor Huddleston. And when he died, the funeral was Archbishop Trevor Huddleston, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and President Mandela, all in the cathedral. And there was a whole lot of fanciness, and the procession arrived, and Tutu announced that we would sing the national anthem. Now, the national anthem was new to us because it was just after 94. So away went the organ, which is the biggest in the Southern Hemisphere, and away went the choir, and they sang Nkosi Sikelele, which is the first verse, Nkosi Sikelele, which is the second verse. And then suddenly the organ stopped, and it didn't play the third and the fourth verses, which are in English and Afrikaans. And there was a silence in that cathedral that you could have dropped the pin and heard it. Because suddenly we were confronted with bullshit. Our national anthem is not national. We used part of it for some functions and another part maybe for other functions. By that stage, Archbishop Tutu was right next to Mandela in the aisle, and Mandela was in the pew in the front. And Mandela turned to him with that voice of Mandela's, which you can't copy. "My Lord Archbishop," he says, with the voice that you could have heard in Maldives. "I am a guest in your house. And as a guest in your house, I should do what you require me to do. But I am also the president of this country." And that was not the national anthem. Now play it again and play it properly. So what it taught me was that there are moments in leadership when you have to take control. Not all the time. That's not an excuse for being a power player, playing red all the time. But every now and again, for the sake of a bigger picture, you have to say, no, that's not acceptable. So that was a dramatic piece of advice, you can imagine.
Yeah. You see, when I listen to the story, especially about Nelson Mandela, and obviously he's a leader that I follow, I read about it, and I listen to some of his speeches. Still, even today, some of his speeches are my favorite speeches that I often listen to get inspiration and ideas on how I can communicate that to people. And I think the value there is integrity, that doing things right when no one is watching. There are hundreds of people probably who are not watching that event, but when you are the president of the country, you have a responsibility towards what is most important to your nation, which is the values of your nation, the national anthem, and the rest of the things. So he wanted to make sure that everybody is treated fairly in that house, because you don't want to be in a house where some feel that they are not being respected. So definitely he took the right decision. And you are right. In leadership, we have to take control at times. And
then I'll give you another quick story of Mandela.
Sure.
I went to have breakfast with him at his home, And we were halfway through breakfast, and I said to him, "Sir, would you mind if my son Steve met you after we've had breakfast?" He said, "Where is he?" So I said, "He's sitting in the car. He drove me here." He said, "Go and fetch him." Just like that. And I thought, oh, I got up and I went to fetch him. I said, "Steve, Mandela wants you to come inside." At the stairs of his house, he was waiting for Steve. And he said to him, "Steve, are you Steve or Stephen?" He said, "I'm Steve, sir." He said, "How are we going to ever teach your father that you don't leave your driver in the car without breakfast? Come inside and have breakfast with me." So what was that? Another simple leadership lesson. Just because he's your driver is not a reason why he shouldn't want breakfast.
Yes, absolutely. And you see, there's a great leadership wisdom there. Many of us, we do that, but we don't see the power of it. And how you treat your driver is how you will treat the rest of the world.
That's right.
This is the reason why we love Nelson Mandela, I think. And I often do these leadership talks, and I ask the audiences that if there's one leader that globally everybody will say is a great leader, is Nelson Mandela. Different people have different views on other leaders, but there are a few people, and one of them is Nelson Mandela. And I think because of the humility and because of the teaching when he was the president, also when he was 20 years in prison and thereafter, what he did. And I think we should do another talk one time just on Nelson Mandela. I'm sure there must be some great wisdoms there we can share with our listeners.
Yeah, and it's a good story because Nelson Mandela, as a young man, was red of his.
Yeah.
There wasn't much blue about him when he was young. So what did he learn? How did he learn to play blue? It was an amazing story, which he shared with me. We'll share it one day.
Absolutely. No, we'll definitely arrange another topic just specifically on leadership and talk about Nelson Mandela.